From the gridiron to the hardwood, James Mesh breaks it all down. It's time for another episode of Cleats and Sneaks.
The AFC North is always a good one, let's be honest. Whether you have the Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, who are consistently good. The Browns find themselves there once in a while, looking pretty good. And then the Bengals, we recently saw them get into a Super Bowl. But overall, outside of some turnover, you still feel pretty good about this AFC North. And going into 2025, I don't feel that much different. Getting into the first team, the Baltimore Ravens, I think with the fact of looking at them, not much has changed. Still have Lamar Jackson, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, under center for them. They have yet another year of the what feels like eternal Derrick Henry over there at running back. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, their top two wide receivers. They did get the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, which we'll get into their top additions later on. But looking at them overall, the wide receiver position, solid. Wish it was better, but the way they run their system and run their team and run their offense, it's not too much of a worry. The big thing is I do wonder about this tight end position because Mark Andrews feels like they've wanted to slowly phase him out. And they've wanted to go to Isaiah Likely, and you saw it last year. But because of an injury to Likely, they had to go back to Andrews. And it feels like we're going to do the same thing once again because currently Isaiah Likely, wait for it, is injured again. So it feels like, especially to begin the season, if you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective, Mark Andrews probably going to get a good bit of targets. And then you also see Patrick Ricard, who's one of the best fullbacks in the NFL. Not too many teams have fullbacks, but even then, even if every team had one, I'd still think Patrick Ricard would be one of the best. The offensive line, still really good. Ronnie Stanley, they have him again. They have Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, which really excited to see what Linderbaum can do in yet another season in the NFL. And then they have other guys like Roger Rosengarten. This is still going to be one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, especially when it comes to the run game. It's absolutely going to be the focus of it all. And I'm really excited to see what they can do and do yet again. It really comes down to what are they going to do in the postseason, especially from an offensive perspective. In years past, you've looked at Lamar as maybe the guy that you want to blame, but then other times, especially last year, it's like, I don't know if I really want to blame Lamar. I think it was just a bad set of circumstances, maybe not phenomenal play from other positions, not necessarily Lamar himself. You can't necessarily blame one player for a playoff loss, but at the same time, Lamar didn't play his best early on in his career, but I think he started to get past it, so I am curious to see what happens in 2025. I have all the confidence in the world that Baltimore is going to make the playoffs once again, and if anything, I'm very much in favor of them actually winning the division. So, not really worried about it. I'm also not really all that worried about the defense as well. They got Nnamdi Madubuike. They got other guys like Roquan Smith at linebacker position, Roderick Washington. They run more of a 3-4 defense, so it makes things really interesting. Kyle Van Noy, I brought up how Derrick Henry is a guy that feels eternal. Kyle Van Noy also feels like it as well. They also have Trenton Simpson. They've got Brent Urban. They've even got Owe. I'm really excited to see how this front seven can play once again because that's always been really the strong suit. And even the safety play. Safety play's also been really good. Guys like Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, the rookie, and we'll get into that rookie class as well. But safety position, not worried about it at all. The big thing that I do wonder about, though, is that cornerback position. They ended up getting Jair Alexander, who I arguably would say is their biggest addition over the season because they didn't make any big-time moves in free agency. The guys that made the most money were Cooper Rush, who's a backup quarterback, so I don't even want to count him. It's really D-Hop who signed a one-year, $5 million deal towards the tail end of his career. Jair Alexander signed a one-year, $4 million deal that's a little bit more incentive-based, but big-time name. As if he can stay healthy, you feel more confident in this cornerback position if you're a Baltimore fan. And then they ended up bringing back Patrick Ricard, but the biggest guy outside of Baltimore was getting Joseph Noteboom to help shore up that offensive line even more. That's the big thing there. Cornerback overall, outside of Alexander, they still have Nate Wiggins and Chidobe Awuzie and even TJ Tampa, and also Marlon Humphrey. But I still need to see more from them. I know it sounds crazy to say, especially with how good the rest of that defense is. But if they could guard the receivers and even guard in short yard situations a little bit better, I'd probably feel even more confident than I already do. Because it's not like I don't. I love this Baltimore defense. It's really good. The fact that your quote-unquote weak point is the cornerback position, and it's really not that bad, you feel really good. I'm going to be honest. What I do wonder about is the transition from going from Justin Tucker and that whole situation to now Tyler Loop. Is he going to be a consistent guy? Because for years, Tucker was a consistent guy. Game in and game out. You didn't have to worry about, is he going to make a field goal? I'm really curious about Tyler Loop in his first year. They have Jordan Stout as their punter, and then their main guy that they're looking for a returner is Tylan Wallace, who every once in a while can make a big-time play for them as well. The big losses for Baltimore, they lost Patrick McCarry. Brandon Stevens ended up going to the Jets. They had Tre'Davious White move on. He ended up going back to the Bills, where it all started for him. And then a couple of other guys that haven't even signed and are still free agents. Marcus Williams. They ended up moving on from him and ended up getting Malachi Starks, which is crazy because Malachi Starks, to me, was supposed to be in about that top 15 or so. And yet here we are looking at the 27th pick, Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. He ends up getting taken there by the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, that's the big thing, is they don't have to make huge free agency splash moves. They'll do it every once in a while. But oftentimes, like we saw with Jair Alexander, they get them for bargain deals. And then they get these guys that just fall into their lap. Doesn't matter if they're a late first-round pick. They still end up getting guys like Kyle Hamilton, like Malachi Starks. And it just ends up working out, and you're like, man, how do they keep doing this? It's because other teams are just overdrafting guys, especially at the quarterback position. They also got Mike Green late in the second round, which was absolutely insane to me that they got Mike Green, who I thought very easily could have been also a top 15 pick, but because of some stuff that was off the field, he ended up falling and also had a little bit of character issue, but I'm not worried about that, especially for a coach like John Harbaugh, who once again comes back to lead the Ravens franchise at head coach. Not worried about it. So absolute home runs and just let them fall into their lap. It's insane to me. Got a good value pick in offensive tackle Emory Jones out of LSU. And then they got some other guys. I know Bilal Coney, he is going to be out for the year, which is really unfortunate. Could have maybe been some quality cornerback depth that Baltimore feels like they could use. But we'll have to wait till next year to see what happens there. Again, going back to Tyler Loop, who they took in the 6th round, place kicker out of Arizona. I'm really curious to see what he ends up doing, but it's not like there was any shortage, I guess you could say, of picks, because a lot of these guys that they took, Starks, Green, Jones, Teddy Buchanan, even going all the way back down to the 7th round, their last pick, guard Garrett Dellinger, also out of LSU. I feel like this was a really good draft and just even further bolsters their roster as a whole. Again, I feel like the question mark is, can they get a real difference maker at wide receiver? Because I don't think Zay Flowers is that guy, but only time will tell. I think they're going to do really well. I think by the end of it all, more likely than not, I think they're going to win the division. So I'm not too worried about it. Now, moving over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're such an interesting case because the big-time addition that we're just going to have to get right into, Aaron Rodgers, does he still have it? Maybe. Definitely feel like he started to take some steps back, and now 2 years off the injury, you feel a little bit better, but again, at the same time, Aaron Rodgers is 41 years old. I mean, like, what are we talking about? Do we really think that this addition of Aaron Rodgers at quarterback is going to be the difference maker for the Steelers, going from a wildcard team every year to all of a sudden competing for the division title or actually moving on to the second round? I don't think so. I do like the fact that they got Caleb Johnson. in the third round in this draft. I think that was an excellent pick because I was really high on Caleb Johnson going into it back in late April. Jalen Warren's still a guy that they can work with as well, and they even got Kenneth Gainwell in free agency. But at the same time, I still think it comes back all the way back to what happens with Aaron Rodgers. What happens with the quarterback play? Because that's always been the big difference maker, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is that guy anymore. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's that guy. I think once we see it again, they'll go 9-8 because Mike Tomlin refuses to have losing seasons, which is never a bad thing. You not having a losing season in your tenure as a head coach, that's pretty darn good. But this roster just doesn't feel like it's good enough to actually compete. DK Metcalf, they traded for him over the offseason, traded a second-round pick to go get him. They got Robert Woods, who's a shell of himself. You still need to try and figure out what Roman Wilson is, a wide receiver himself. And then also Calvin Austin III. He's supposed to be their wide receiver too, but I'm not very convinced of him either. Pat Freiermuth is a tight end that you feel good about. And then they got Jonnu Smith. But Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator, I think this is just going to be a weird offense. I think they're going to be good in the run game, especially since they've tried to bolster that offensive line as well. Broderick Jones, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu, a recent draft pick as well, and then Isaac Sumalo. Like, I think this whole offensive line is definitely better than it was, but I don't like the receiving core. I think the tight ends are fine. I feel pretty good about the running backs. Again, I like Caleb Johnson a lot, but I still don't love the quarterback position for them, and it's a weird OC in Arthur Smith. They can run the ball, but passing the ball, he gets weird. Let's be honest. He gets really weird. We saw it back in Atlanta when he was the head coach over there. Defense, I know Cam Hayward's still trying to get his contract extension once again going. But TJ Watt, the mainstay, who ended up getting $41 million as a contract extension himself. Patrick Queen, Alex Highsmith round out the linebacker room, and you still feel good about it. But I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about the secondary. Because they have Darius Slay. They have Jalen Ramsey. They have Joey Porter Jr. But what's left with Ramsey? What's left with Slay? Juan Thornhill is an okay safety. And Deshaun Elliott, it's about the same. Like, they're all right, but nothing too crazy about them. Like, they signed Aaron Rodgers. They trade for Jalen Ramsey and end up getting rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. They signed Darius Slay. But what do these guys have left? I mean, seriously, I don't know what these guys have left. I don't feel great about it. Now, they did get Derek Harmon in the first round of the NFL draft, which I do like a lot. I'm going to be honest. I liked Derek Harmon. But overall, looking at the draft, looking at what they did in free agency, you can obviously tell they're all in, but I don't think they made a huge difference. I'm going to be honest. They moved on from some guys. They moved on from George Pickens, sent him to Dallas. They bring in DK Metcalf. Okay? They move on from Russell Wilson, and they move on from Justin Fields, and they bring in a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. They make the extensions to TJ Watt, which is good. And then they sign some guys that were years ago at the top of their position in Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey, but I still don't love it. I like the fact that they got Caleb Johnson at running back, and I feel better about this offensive line compared to years past. But overall, as a team, I don't think we're going to see much change. 9-8 probably is going to end up being what they do throughout this offseason and throughout this 2025 season, I should say. Now, when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, they're going to do everything they can to keep this team in games and still try to put up nearly 40 points. But I don't think it's going to result in a whole lot of wins. I think the offense, still fine. Wish they could do a little bit more with the O-line. But overall, the fact that they still have Mike Gesicki, who's a quality, older veteran tight end that can still do things. They even signed Noah Fant as another tight end. And then you have, again, Jamar, T. They still have Iosivas. They have Jermaine Burton, which we'll see if Jermaine Burton can do anything. But Chase Brown seems to be the guy and is likely going to be the guy in the running back room, at least for this year for Cincinnati. Not worried about the offense at all. Just throw it away. Don't even worry about it. It's not a question. Offense is going to be fine. They still have Joe Burrow at quarterback. Not worried. The defense, though. The defense. Myles Murphy, I feel like might be able to be a guy that can step up. And the fact that they did eventually figure out the Trey Hendrickson contract. And they ended up finally signing Shamar Stewart. That's nice. Still have B.J. Hill. Joseph Asai. Cam Sample. Those guys are good. But the fact that you had the whole drama during the offseason and you had critical missed time from Shamar Stewart because you couldn't get this contract situation going, and then Trey Hendrickson also missed a good chunk of camps because of his contract situation as well, I don't feel good. In this defense, it's not like they got significantly better. I wasn't high on Shamar Stewart, but the fact that you took so long to actually get him in, dude, it took forever. I still don't love the secondary either. Geno Stone and Jordan Battle are meh. Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill, and DJ Turner are your starting corners. I don't love it. I mean, this defense is still putrid. I don't see any reason to have any more faith in them than I did last year when I had none. It was clear and apparent that they weren't guys that you could actually rely on. This defense as a whole, don't love it. They got some good pieces. Trey, I like. I feel like Myles Murphy could step up. B.J. Hill, still a solid guy, especially in the run game. Logan Wilson, a good linebacker. But overall, as the whole unit, the whole defense, no thanks. Not in on it. It feels like we're just going to see a repeat of what happened in 2024 in 2025. Evan McPherson at this point is just degraded to an okay kicker, especially after what we had seen very early in his career to begin it all. The dude was on fire, and then just ever since then, just been put out like a candle. It's absolutely insane. I think the Cincinnati Bengals didn't make too many crazy additions throughout the season, or throughout the offseason, I should say. They brought in a couple guys, but none of them are going to be huge difference makers. Lucas Patrick, he was meh for the Saints. They bring in Samaje Perine, familiar face, but again, meh. The guys that ended up being relinquished. Alex Kappa, he ended up moving on. It's not like it was a huge difference maker. Sheldon Rankins, he ends up going to the Texans. And then Jermaine Pratt, who was another linebacker for them, he actually goes to the Las Vegas Raiders as well with Kappa. I don't love any of the guys. All the guys that they got rid of, it's like, okay, didn't matter all that much. And the guys that they signed don't matter all that much. At the end of the day, I think this team is going to be just about the same of what we'd seen last year, where they're going to put up a lot of points. You're going to want to draft the offensive guys in fantasy, but wins on the field, no thanks. Not going to see too many of those. I don't expect them to make the playoffs. Do I think they're going to win 3 wins? No, I think they win more games. But being above 500 and getting into the playoffs, I think a lot of things are going to have to fall their way. I'm going to be honest. And that's coming after a Triple Crown season from Jamar Chase, which that's hard to replicate. I'm not sure if we can see that once again. So Cincinnati's going to need a lot to go their way for them to actually get into the playoffs. Then for the final team, the Cleveland Browns, I don't want to spend too much time on them. They got 70 million quarterbacks on the roster. Shedeur Sanders actually looked good in the preseason game for them. I'm not going to say he was going to make the team and go all the way as to somehow be the starter. I think that's going to be Joe Flacco once again. He'd also have to beat out Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett. It's not like that's the greatest competition, but with the way it all went, the fact that Cleveland traded for Kenny Pickett and drafted Gabriel ahead of Shedeur, it was going to be a big hill that he was going to have to climb. And then Shedeur ends up going down with an oblique injury most recently in this practice against the Eagles. So they got a lot of quarterbacks, and they even brought in Tyler Huntley. They got a lot of quarterbacks on the roster, but none of them are quality guys. All these guys are second and third stringers. None of these are quality starters. Joe Flacco. I made fun of Aaron Rodgers for being 41. Joe Flacco's no spring chicken. We've heard this guy for years now. He's at the tail end of his career. He's a ghost of himself, and him being with the Cleveland Browns, it's just going to be a dumpster fire, let's be honest. Quinshon Judkins, it's a whole weird situation going on over there. You'd expect him to eventually start to take over the starting ball carrier and be the main ball carrier, much like we'd seen with Nick Chubb over the last handful of years after he got drafted by Cleveland. But Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, going to be okay. I'd believe more in Dylan Sampson than I would Jerome Ford. We already know what Ford's going to be. He's going to be meh. He's going to be somebody that's a guy. He's going to be a jag. He's just going to be a jag. That's all he's going to be. The wide receiver position, I think it's an utter dumpster fire. I thought Jerry Jeudy, I was hyped about him coming into the league. And he's had some flashes here and there. Had some solid years. Started to show it last year as well. But that was with a pass-happy Jameis Winston. I'm not expecting anything from him this year. Cedric Tillman's a guy that could pop off, especially with the fact that we would expect Cleveland to be down in so many games, so they're going to pass more often. But I don't think he's a real difference maker. Jamari Thrash, DeAndre Carter, David Bell, Deontay Johnson, all these guys are just nothing receivers. They're not going to make any sort of real impact and help win games for Cleveland. David Njoku's still a guy that I like, but David Njoku's not good enough of a tight end to mask the deficiencies in this offense. Let's be honest. He's not. The offensive line's still pretty good. DeJuan Jones, Joel Bitonio, Ethan Pochik, and even Jack Conklin with Wyatt Teller. That's a good offensive line. It's a good running offensive line. But who cares if you got a good running offensive line if you're not going to be able to actually put points on the board and actually win ball games? The skill position guys aren't good enough to actually help this Cleveland team win games. The offensive line is good, but the rest of this offense, I don't like. I don't like it at all. Then you look towards the defense. Myles Garrett, another $40 million guy. Who would have thought? But outside of that, what am I supposed to look at? Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who showed some stuff but ended up getting released and wasn't retained by Tampa, tells you a lot. The rest of the defensive line, Mason Graham was taken in the first round by Cleveland, which was cool. Top 5 guy. Shout out to him. But I'm not expecting too much out of him in his first year. Also, defensive tackles just don't put up a lot of stats. So if you're looking for a guy that stuffs the stat sheet, I wouldn't look towards him. I think he'll be okay, but I don't think he'll be a real difference maker on the defensive side either. Looking towards the rest of the defensive line, Malik Collins, Alex Wright, not big on them. Devin Bush, Carson Schlesinger, Mohamed Diabate. No. Nah, I'm good. Linebacker position's putrid to me. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Cam Mitchell. I still like Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward's still a really good corner for them, and that's nice. And then even Grant Delpit's still been a pretty serviceable and pretty solid starting safety in the NFL ever since he came in from LSU. But overall, secondary is not very good. Linebacker sucks. And outside of Myles Garrett and maybe Mason Graham, I don't think they have anybody. I mean, let's be honest. Even if you want to look at the rotation, Isaiah McGuire, Shelby Harris, going back to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and even if you want to look at Cam Thomas, I mean, these guys, this whole roster sucks. Let's be honest. I mean, I brought up Joe Burrow in Cincinnati asking, do I see them winning 3 games? No, I expect them to win more. Cleveland, though. Cleveland, absolutely, in that 3 to 4 win range. No shot. They're finishing at the bottom of the division. I'm doing a little bit of spoiling with this division, but that's just how I see it. Cleveland's at the bottom. Baltimore's number 1. You got number 2 probably going to be Pittsburgh just because they refuse to be below 500. But I don't think they're going to. It's just going to be the same thing. I mean, this is just going to be wash, rinse, repeat. Baltimore number 1. Pittsburgh number 2. Cincinnati's number 3 just because their defense sucks. And then Cleveland's just a terrible roster built altogether. So they're going to finish 4th. That's how I see the AFC North falling, and that's how I feel looking at this AFC North as a whole. The Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. That's going to do it for another edition of Cleats and Sneaks. When we come back next go around, we'll head out towards the East Coast, look at some teams there. But until then, appreciate you listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, ESPN Southwest Louisiana, and I'll talk to you next time.